And I'm like this. It saddens me, everything that's happening, but it also it fuels us because we recognize that we have a chance to actually make that difference in our own communities and at a level that we're not going to be able to do nationally. And I think there's this sense of right now what people want us to do is to back down, to stay quiet, and to just live with what's happening, to not speak out, to make it harder for us to do what's right. And it's definitely going to be difficult, but it's like we don't have a choice right now. Like our morality is lying on the line. Like they're going to ask us our kids are going to ask us 50 years from now and say, how did you guys let all of this stuff happen? And why didn't you do anything? And so this is us doing something, saying we're not accepting this narrative, and what we're going to do is change our city and our community, and we're going to show our state, the South, the country, that there's a way to have a moral city that not only develops and is thriving for people of higher incomes, but from people from all incomes. So we're staying hopeful, and I'm hoping that everyone else stays hopeful. And one way to do that is honestly join our campaign. We'll keep you motivated and keep you going.
And that's what I was going to ask. How can people join the campaign? And you just alluded to it. Right now, you're not, and like I said, I hope that changes. But right now, you're not one of the front runners. But how are you changing that narrative? How are you becoming able to hopefully change that narrative so that you actually are the front runner and are the mayor of Raleigh? So right now, I think that I'm not even sure where you're running, but I know there are a few that are ahead of you and everything. But how are you trying to change that narrative?
Yeah, so we are number 3 in a pool of 6, and the candidate who raised the most money is polling under us. And so I would say not in the front runner, but a pretty strong contender in terms of, the amount of money that we've raised and, one experience, et cetera. But back to your point, helping with the campaign, if anyone wants to help, regardless of whether you have political experience, whether you have organizing experience, whatever, we are willing to take people passionate about making a change in the community. People who feel like they're not sure what to do right now, we're talking about issues. We're figuring out how to craft policy. We're figuring out how to market and make people aware of these issues that are happening. And that's really what our campaign's about. So, send us a DM, send us a message on our website. It's Zainab for Raleigh, ZAINAB, the number for Raleigh. And we're looking for volunteers, team members, and always are looking for donations. And that's mainly because we're not going to be able to do this without people investing in the future of our city. So really most of our donations are made by $5, $10 donations. So if you're listening right now, feel free to Venmo us.
And is there any particular part of Raleigh that you feel that you really need support at, or that you really need help at? Is there like a region of Raleigh? I'm imagining that you're probably, because you have some affiliations to state and definitely to Southeast Raleigh. So I imagine that you're doing pretty well in those. But are there any other parts of Raleigh that you really would like to see people really help you out in, that you may feel that you're not doing as strongly in, but you feel that you have some good possibilities of at least carrying those areas that maybe you're not carrying right now, or particular groups that you would like to see more involved in your campaign?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly where we're polling, but we're really focusing right now on District D, B, and C. District D is made up a lot of, college students, young professionals, downtown area. District C, Southeast Raleigh, very, old and historic neighborhoods, and District B, which is where I grew up in, and a very diverse area of people from all different ethnic backgrounds. And I'd say I would like to know more about other groups. I'm familiar with a few groups like Power Up, but other groups that are doing environmental work around exactly how the environmental work in Raleigh and how it impacts people of low wealth. And so that's something I think it's been hard to find, but I'm just interested in seeing and learning more about those issues and figuring out what the need is for there. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we're looking for connections in all of Raleigh and learning to, learn more about everyone. So, just send us a message.
Definitely, and I think that you'll definitely have people back in the campaign and things of that nature. I know that because you first got involved in activism, I know we mentioned this on the last time I had you on the show, but it's been a number of years that you first got involved, because I want to say that you were doing some stuff when you were what some people would consider a teenager or a child, and now you're a adult lady and everything. So you've been doing politics and activism. How many years would you say it's been now?
I'd say since middle school.
Wow.
That was I think my first or one of my most memorable first moments of activism was, I remember just saying, there wasn't any space for the girls to play basketball, and we'd kind of gone through the procedures, but we ended up just sitting in the middle of the gym until they'd let us play basketball too. So it was in middle school, but it was just, that form of just making sure we all kind of were given a seat at the table or the court.
Nothing wrong with that. We were actually just talking about that because we were talking earlier before you joined us about how we're even seeing some of our athletes that are using their platform now to make sure that they have a voice at the table, and not just a voice as stars, but also using their stardom to raise issues, whether that was somebody like Camp Bailey or Hank Aaron or Colin Kaepernick back in the day and a few years back and everything. But we're definitely seeing that athletes are using their voice to let people hear their thoughts as well, and I'm a big fan of that. So, and definitely, I think that middle school, because my nephews are now one's getting ready to go to sixth grade. So if he decides to do some activism, I will definitely be there supporting him. And even if his younger brother, who's in the fifth grade, decides to do some, I'll be backing them as well, because they definitely have that in their genes and in their DNA. So definitely can relate to you doing that at a very young age and continuing doing it even to this day and everything. So I'm thinking that even though you're a young activist, you'll probably be doing it. I bumped into Andrea Harris, who a lot of people know in this area as being an activist, and she's probably around my mom's age, so she's in her mid-70s or something like that, and still very much of an activist. And I'm thinking that even when you're in your 70s and 80s, you'll probably still be an activist as well.
Oh, yes. I got a long life of activism in front of me.
Yeah. And I've just, Dean, and hopefully you'll stay on, but Dean, I've just been informed by Joshua, because I'm on the line with him, that he's on the line now as well. And while she's running for mayor, Joshua is running for city council. Do you see Joshua online?
I think
I'm
this
here.
is him right here. There it is.
Yeah. I'm here. How y'all doing?
Hey, Joshua, I'm so glad that you were able to join the conversation. I told Zainab that she would probably be there. I don't know when she's got to bounce off with me and everything, but, Zainab is running for the mayor of Raleigh, and, of course, Joshua, you are running for city council in Durham.
Yes.
What got you involved in the politics? Because I've always known you, like I said, we were talking earlier about you as a performer, and I know that you definitely work with the Durham Chamber as well, and I know that you're a proud parent now, because you had one kid and a second kid on the way. So I know that the children is part of what has got you involved in politics. But tell a little bit about your story and why you think that you would be a good city council candidate or a good city council representative.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. My apologies for being a bit late. The city council is meeting today, so I wanted to make sure I was present here. But in terms of, you're right, man, my background is I'm an artist. I've been making hip-hop music since I was 7 years old. I've had the opportunity to tour the world, and I've performed in 15 countries and all over the United States and done television and movies, and, really can say that my dreams came true, and I feel like I owe a lot of that to the community I come from. Durham is a consistent theme in my music, and it also sort of that music influences my life's work. So I moved back to Durham in 2014 and discovered a rapidly changing community. Many of the changes being positive things that downtown was cool and all these great amenities, but I also noticed some of the cultural fabric being challenged or diminished, as well as some of the the negative implications of gentrification and lack of affordability and access, and also just a general lack of what I call Durham voices in the rooms where these decisions are made, and someone to represent and advocate for those of us who've been in the community for, in my case, for 4 generations. So just initially leaned into doing sort of community organizing and activism work And my friends and I founded a festival called Black August in the Park, centered around creating safe spaces for black folks and members of the African diaspora. And through that work, just really became steeped in sort of all of the issues that are impacting our community and trying to figure out the best way for me to positively impact the city I love so much. And, slowly recognize that there's only so much that I can do outside and that we need to have representative voices on the inside of government on a local level. And, did some soul searching. And as you mentioned, I have 2 children and a beautiful wife, and talked it over with her. And, it felt like the time was now and the time was right. So I'm excited about the opportunity to represent my city. And this is the next phase of that. I've always done it as an artist and as a community organizer and ambassador, but the next step of that is government. So I'm ready to take on the challenge.
Sounds like you're definitely ready to take on the challenge. And you brought up an interesting issue. And the last time I had Zainab on, she talked about that as well. And I'd like to hear from both of y'all as to both from Raleigh and the Durham perspective as to this whole thing of gentrification, because both cities are going by leaps and bounds. But unfortunately, both cities, the rents are ridiculous. Because like I said, I know that there's some new buildings that are going up in Durham that are like $1,700 in the downtown area. I want to say Raleigh, y'all might even have some that are in the $2,000 range.
Yeah, so I'll let Zainab go first since I was late to the call, but I certainly want to talk about that. How you doing, man? Thank you, brother. Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, y'all.
No, you're good. So basically, I think what we're seeing right now in Raleigh is that there has been, historic gentrification continuously happening in Raleigh, but in these past few years, it has increased and rapidly, it is just moving so fast. You walk around neighborhoods, they're changing daily. We are building, developers are building 1 to 2 houses in neighborhoods so that, they're turning over a lot faster and people are getting pushed out left and right. And in Wake County or in Wake County, Raleigh, you have almost 100,000 people who are at the risk of homelessness because if they have one emergency, et cetera, they're not going to be able to afford their rent. In Wake County, to meet your basic needs for a family of 4, it costs $63,000, and that's your basic needs: housing, food, daycare. So we really have to think about what we're going to do holistically when we're building housing and how we're going to build a lot more housing quickly. And that comes with, looking at our zoning requirements, thinking about and getting rid of single-family zoning restrictions on these places, having higher density. We're in a housing crisis, so we have to do things differently, and we have to do them fast.
And Josh, what would you say about that in the reference of Durham and everything? And also, one of the questions that I asked Zainab earlier, and I wanted to hear your standpoint about this, is that I'm just curious as to your view on this, is the whole thing of being a young activist, because sometimes that's the criticism. I know that was the criticism when Pierce ran for mayor, was that he hadn't, quote unquote, earned his time and everything. As you just said, you have done a number of activism work with. Some people would probably be like, but you haven't served in city council before, you haven't done this. I do know you've been with the Chamber of Commerce, but how do you address when folks of sometimes the old guard want to kind of diss you and try to put you at a negative because of the age limitation?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I worked closely with Pierce, or I shouldn't say work closely because his team did a tremendous job, but I was in contact with him consistently throughout his campaign, and that was one of the major criticisms that he was trying to overcome, was just the general perception that he was too young and this generational divide. If you were to go to my site, you'll see that one of my focuses is uniting generations. I think young folks, we have our issues as well in terms of how we relate to our elders and how we stay engaged with our elders. I also think, our elders could build bridges for us a little bit better as well. I think there's some space on both sides for us to work better together. I expect to hear that criticism in regards to my age, but in terms of the experience piece, Mos Def has a line on a song where he says, "Why do I need ID to get ID? If I had ID, I wouldn't need ID." Right? And I think that's the same with experience, right? It's always like, well, you never served in government before, so you can't get elected. And it's like, well, how do I ever get the experience if I can't be elected, right? It's sort of this chicken or the egg thought process that I think is challenging. I think qualified people come in all ages,